You know, there's a chap, and let me say it at this stage. I thought I'll say it later on in days. Because these waters are somewhere, and they have to be found. If it was common, that would have been the effect. Are you following what I'm saying here? Listen, if the waters were just common, that everybody, you know, this gentleman used to work for a company, and after some time, he was given, an entertainer, $50 million for it, and he walked away from the $50 million deal. This was many years ago in America. So they asked him in an interview, what made you walk away from the deal? And they didn't see him for 2 years. He finally came back for some years. He said, when I was living in Africa, I discovered something that he left and came to America. He was an American and came to Africa, and somewhere in Southern Africa. And he said, let me tell you this story. He said, all right, and that story, I found it very deep. He said, I noticed when I got to Africa, I saw that what the certain types of people, it's not a derogatory statement. This is what they are called in that place. They're called bushmen. It's not your interpretation of bushman, all right? It's how they're called. So that when they don't find water again, they don't have access to water again, that's the water has finished. And listen, water finishes, and you must look for the next pool. Brooks dry up, and you must look for where the water is next. Are you following what I'm saying here? Okay? And God does it that way so that you maintain fellowship with him. The wind blows where it listeth. You cannot have a corner on the move of God. What you have mastered today will be the very thing that will hinder you from entering the next move of the Spirit. This is how God does things. 10 seasons, 10 kings, except there's humility. Are you following what I'm saying here? Every season throws up new kings. So he said, when the water finishes, the bushman will go and put salt into a cave. And they knew that baboons like salt. And so the baboons will come, and this cave will be a large piece of salt. And the baboon puts his hand right through the hole and holds onto the salt because he loves salt. But when he holds onto the salt, his hand gets bigger and therefore gets trapped because it's a large and doesn't want to leave the salt. So he holds onto the salt and is holding and is trying to get itself out until the bushman comes and carries the baboon, throws the baboon into a cage, and gives the baboon all the salt it wants in the world. And after the baboon has eaten and eaten all the salt, it gets very thirsty. Then the bushman opens the cage because baboons know where water is hidden. And as the baboon is going, he runs after the baboon, and the baboon takes it to the next stream, and they discover water that way. So he said, I was being used to find the next place where waters were in the industry. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So there are waters there. And if 3 years ago things were moving and they are no longer moving, just be honest with yourself. That brook has dried. Don't front. Say, you take responsibility for it. If somebody comes into this place and says, someone just poured a bucket of water on me as I was coming in, why is this so? And the person is absolutely dry. You know nobody poured water on them. If the water touches, you bud and you are fruitful. Let me quickly go on here. So I'm trying to get where this water is. Now, I know and one of the things I prayed for this convention, it should be a convention where the voice of God comes into the body of Christ. A